Well, how is everybody doing today? Welcome back to Power Factor, brought to you by the4persons.net. And today we're going to do part two of my challenge to deeper truth, the apostles that I used to belong to. And this is dealing specifically with the Ruini report. I'm going to try and be as civil as I can be about this. But the truth is the truth, folks. John Carpenter and Donald Hartley and supporters of Medjugorje, certain supporters of Medjugorje, just are not being truthful with you about what the Ruini report says. So you're going to notice that I do something different than what they do. They tell you what the Ruini report says, and they ask you to trust them. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you chapter and verse. I'm going to show you the links to the actual report. And you're going to be able to see for yourself. So at the end of the day, you're going to be able to make a comparison. Non-popular line or is not bankable line. I think you're going to very seriously, easily see. This isn't just about deeper truth. This is about the larger issue of what's being misrepresented about the Ruini report. So let's start right at the top. This is what the Catholic News Agency, you can go to their website. And this is a screenshot, and I did highlight this part, stand out. This is a screenshot from their news site that says this was about the fallout from the Ruini report. This was the Vatican's reaction to the Ruini report. Right? Francis mentioned them on the airplane. The Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, led by Cardinal Gerhard Ludwig Muller, expressed doubts about the Ruini report. I consider it an authoritative contribution to be compared with other opinions and reports. Now, the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith, they're the authority on this, and you're going to see. I'm going to show that everything that I allege here in this Zoom video, I'm going to prove to you. There's not going to be any unsubstantiated allegations like you see in the peanut gallery. So the Ruini report was a report to be compared with other reports. It's about opinions, okay? And the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, who's responsible for accepting or rejecting the Ruini report, along with the Pope, wanted the whole thing thrown out. I mean, they're on record as saying that they think the whole report should be rejected. It's just nonsense. It's contradictory. Whole thing should be thrown out, and an immediate negative judgment should be rendered against the Ruini report. The Pope kind of wanted to be prudent and take a wait-and-see attitude on the first 7 apparitions only. That the Ruini report said might be worthy, might be considered to be credible. Just the first 7 apparitions only. So he's decided we're going to do our due diligence. We're going to go through the process and everything. Well, that process we're 5 years into that process. Make no mistake, the Ruini report is going to be rejected by the Pope and the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith. They're just going through the motions. Right? That right here, that's the chance of Medjugorje being approved by the Catholic Church. 0. So John Carpenter and a few other fringe wackos are claiming that the Ruini report constitutes an approval of the Medjugorje apparition. Nothing could be further from the truth. We're going to go through this. Okay, so John Carpenter and Donald Hartley is who this is directly, specifically at, but it's to the larger issue of these people that continue to support Medjugorje and continue to insist that the Ruini report is a validation of Medjugorje. Certainly isn't. So 3 lies that have been circulating about the Ruini report. 1, that it constitutes an approval accepted by the Vatican. and see by this CNA article I just cited here, that's not true. It's false. Has not been accepted by the Vatican. I would argue never will be accepted by the Vatican. Okay. Now, as we're going to find out as we get deeper into this, John Carpenter claims that not only is it an approval, which is false, but it's an approval of the first year of apparitions. Well, first of all, it is not an approval. It is a recommendation of approval, and it's a recommendation of approval for 7 apparitions total, period. In fact, the very same Ruini report says apparitions 8 on. It specifically condemns them, not one positive vote. They took a vote on the apparitions from 8 on. John Carpenter will say that they just kind of let that slide, for approval later. That's a lie, false. We're going to get into that. So understand that the Ruini report is positive on 10 days of apparitions. And we're going to, as we get into this, we're going to find that their support for even those 10 days is duplicitous and ridiculous and nonsense. But it supports 10 days, 7 apparitions. That's it. So let's make it clear. We're going to go into this, and Donald Hartley says that he believes in the Ruini report. He stands on the Ruini report. Well, obviously he doesn't. He's just taking John Carpenter's word to what the Ruini report says. He obviously never read it himself. Because if he read it himself and said he stands on the report, well, he's admitting that when he went to Medjugorje in 1988 and 1989, Virgin Mary was not appearing there. Now, I knew that, and I'm glad that Donald Hartley is admitting that she wasn't there, but guess what? She wasn't there in 81 either. John Carpenter claims that the Ruini report is silent on the last 39 years, allowing for it to be approved later. As we're going to show, that's false. It's a lie. If the Ruini report were approved today, it would be officially declaring that there have been no apparitions of the Virgin Mary after July 3rd, 1981. That is what the Ruini report stated, very clearly. Okay? Now, all that I had asked for from Deeper Truth, and we're going to hear an audio, and this audio that we're going to go through is, that I'm going to dissect, is basically, this was the straw that broke the camel's back. When I heard this is when I knew that I had to leave. I knew there was no hope for reforming these 2 guys. And I'm going to go through this audio, and I'm going to take it apart. And I'm going to kind of jump around in this article a little bit. Look at the link of the article here. You can go back and read the article itself by putting this address, go into all the links and how they're segmented and everything. I'm going to address it in this video a little bit differently, but feel free to take it upon yourself to go back and read the article itself. Okay? So I'm going to start by playing this audio, and I'm going to stop it after 37 seconds and just address this part. And we'll go through it piece by piece like that. Okay? So let's listen to the first 37 seconds of this just ridiculous, egregious statement. And let me make sure that I'm doing this right. Just hold on 1 second. Okay, so I wasn't sharing sound before. I'm glad that I did that, because I wasn't sharing sound before. So now let me go ahead and share sound here. And here we go. Just listen to this 37-second blurb.
There's one major difference with these apparitions. It occurs in these 40 years, especially the last 10 or 20. Social media has been involved. And I don't know of any other apparitions that ever had social media worldwide chime in with opinions and supposed facts and supposed rumors and supposed, information interfering with, just anyone's understanding of what's going on. I don't think we've ever had that before with any other apparitions throughout history. So that's a whole new thing. And
Okay. So his first assertion, is that basically it's all social media's fault. That all the people who are opposed to Medjugorje, who are against Medjugorje, it's because of social media. Well, I mean, he doesn't give any empirical evidence to support this, and you'll see John Carpenter do this all the time. In fact, I would, the majority, I'm not going to quantify it with a number because then I'd be doing exactly what he does, but the majority of the claims he makes are this empirical, off the top of his head stuff with no evidence. And he does that here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide some empirical evidence, okay, against his claim. And at the end of the day, you can figure out whose position is more plausible. I cannot disprove this particular contention, but he certainly hasn't attempted to prove it. And I think the weight of the evidence is going to lead you to believe that this claim is false, okay? 10 years would take us back to 2012. And 20 years would take us back to 2002. Okay? So 20 years would take us back to 2002. Now, Carpenter needs to explain why 4 condemnations on Medjugorje. 4 condemnations. There was the first commission of Bishop Zanuck. There was the second commission of Bishop Zanuck. There was the first commission of Bishop Peric, and there was the Yugoslav bishops commission. All 4 condemned the apparitions of Medjugorje and said that nothing supernatural was occurring. Right? The last one of those was 11 years before 2002. 11 years before 2002 and 22 years before 2012. So all of the negative information that was out on Medjugorje was out well before the explosion of social media. So before the 2002 explosion of negative social media, the apparitions had already gone on for more than 20 years, unapproved. Now, I need him to explain how you can quantify how the anti-Medjugorje information has surpassed and negatively impacted the pro-Medjugorje side, because that's what he's alleging. He's alleging, oh, all this anti-Medjugorje information has come out, and it's counterweighted the pro-Medjugorje side to the point where it's outweighed. Okay. He doesn't give any evidence of that. Okay. So in his book, Medjugorje Complete, I read this book by Donald Anthony Foley. It's a meticulously researched book. Okay. Amazingly researched. I think it's 150 pages of footnotes. It's incredible. It's insane. How meticulously researched this book is, and how humble this man is, and Donald Hartley suggested this man has some kind of agenda. Yeah, he has an agenda, the truth. He makes a compelling case that the exact opposite is true. All right, correlation. You want to try to demonstrate causation. Well, correlation is the first part of that. All right. And if the avalanche of social media over the last 10 to 20 years has been negative against Medjugorje, then why has the crowd sizes gone up during that time? Can you explain that? I mean, you can empirically look at the number of pilgrims going to Medjugorje, and it has risen over the last 10 to 20 years dramatically. Okay. And the dramatic increase in tourism, that's undeniable, has also led to a dramatic increase in cash. That is also undeniable. New hotels being built. One of the visionaries actually hosting, pilgrims going there, and the fact that they're all living very affluent lives. One of them has an $800,000 home in the outskirts of Boston. Ivan drives a BMW. They're all doing quite well. And all of this is because of the influx of positive information. I would say the positive information out of Medjugorje has far surpassed the negative because it bypasses the church. Okay? Because the church is against Medjugorje. So all of this information that's coming out from the peanut gallery, let's be honest, that's what it is. Those who are circumventing the will of the church, people like John Carpenter, circumventing the will of the church by putting their own garbage out there. They're the peanut gallery. Meanwhile, the people who are speaking for the church are speaking against Medjugorje. So I would say his claim is baseless and unfounded, and probably the evidence probably points the other way. But I can't prove that. But his claim is baseless and unfounded. There's absolutely no evidence to support his claim that a rise in social media has correlated with a rise in people's opinions of Medjugorje being false. That happened to do more with the fact that the visionaries are pathological liars. The fact that there's no supernatural events, there's been no miracles of any sort. Anyway, in this episode, we're trying to keep the focus on the Ruini report. We'll deal more with the specifics about Medjugorje in episode 3. His claim here is baseless and unfounded. Okay, so now we're going to go from 38 seconds in to 48 seconds in and hear this ridiculous claim. It's just absolute falsehood.
Again, 40 years for Medjugorje, and it does have limited. The first year it has been approved with a large majority vote.
Okay. First year of Medjugorje has been approved with a large majority vote. Absolute falsehood. Has not been approved at all. Okay. First of all, Medjugorje, no part of Medjugorje has been approved. Second of all, the Ruini report recommends that the first 7 apparitions could be considered credible. 7 apparitions, 10 days. The period from June 24th, 1981 to the period of July 3rd, 1981. That's it. So where John Carpenter is getting this 1 year figure, first year, all indications are he made it up pulled it out of thin air, made it up on the spot. If he does have a source for it, it's not a credible source. So I'm going to ask you to do this. This is what I want you to do. I'm going to tell you this over and over again. Don't take my word for it. Unlike John Carpenter, I'm not going to tell you how things are and expect you to take my word for it. I'm going to tell you not to take my word for it. Go to the Vatican website. Go to EWTN. Go to Catholic Answers or Lydia or Catholic Org or Church Pop or New Advent or Catholic Channel or Ascension or Ave Maria Press or Ignatius Press or Catholic News Agency or Relevant Radio. Go to any of these Catholic sites. Nowhere are you going to find a list of approved apparitions of the Catholic Church that has Medjugorje included. In fact, you can find a whole lot of them where you look up condemned apparitions or Medjugorjes on those lists. You won't find one, not one, that says these are approved apparitions, either by the Vatican or by the bishops. You won't find one that has Medjugorje approved. Why? Because it's an absolute falsehood. 1 year of Medjugorje has not been approved. 10 days of apparition have not been approved. 10 seconds of apparitions have not been approved in Medjugorje. That's fact. Okay? Only fringe extremists like John Carpenter are making this ludicrous and easily refuted claim. The Ruini report was a non-binding report of opinions that were submitted to the Pope and the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith for their consideration. It is of no more weight than any other opinion that has been rendered to date. Okay, folks, look, I'm pointing on the screen. Just read it. These are not my words. This is Catholic News Agency. Read it. The Ruini report, considered an authoritative contribution to be compared with other opinions and reports. Well, of course, it's authoritative because it's written by a bishop, written by a cardinal. So, of course, it's going to be authoritative based on that fact alone. But it's opinion to be compared with other opinions. So, I hope you're noticing a pattern early on. John Carpenter says, but I show. He can't do this because what he's saying isn't the truth, plain and simple. Bluntly, the Ruini report has no more weight than the paper that it's printed on, and only till it's formally adopted and approved by the Pope and the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, period. Those are just the facts. Okay? I want to show you an article that is currently on Wikipedia. And Wikipedia is just one source that I chose. You can any number of credible news sources or anything, it's just one, right? Let's look at the article here. Catholic response to the Medjugorje apparitions. Pretty authoritative article. Let's go down here to paragraph 6. Official position of the Church. Until such time as the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith releases its findings, the 1991 determination of the Yugoslav Bishops' Conference that the apparitions are not supernatural or that the supernatural nature of the apparitions is not founded stands. The 1991 condemnation, which was the 4th condemnation, stands, period. That is the official position of the Catholic Church. Read it yourself. Official position of the Church. Okay, here's the link. Copy the link down yourself, search it yourself. Don't listen to John Carpenter. Don't listen to me. Go right to the horse's mouth. And if you don't like what Wikipedia says, any of dozens and dozens of other sources where you can find the same information. Anyone that tells you that the apparitions of Medjugorje are proved is lying. It's false. They're not. Okay. The ban against promoting them still stands. The ban against officially recognizing them still stands. The Ruini report changed nothing. And it can't change anything until it's adopted by the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith and the Pope. And I'm going to show Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith and the Pope are extremely negative on the Ruini report. I mean, there's just no chance it's going to be accepted. So right now, in promoting Medjugorje as true, Carpenter and Hartley are officially promoting an apparition that's condemned by the Church. They're in official defiance of the Catholic Church. Now, we could have had a fair meeting of the minds on this. Carpenter and Hartley could believe that the Vatican will eventually overturn the ban and cease their unqualified promotion of the alleged events until that approval actually happens. Now, don't get me wrong, there's no chance that's going to happen, so their belief would be delusional, but there's nothing in Catholic Church law that says you can't be delusional so long as you're not disobedient. And this would be acting in obedience and exercising prudential judgment. No, let's just be honest. The Pope and the Congregation of Doctrine of Faith will approve the Ruini report about the time that they have the ice capades in hell. But if Carpenter and Hartley want to believe it, well, whatever floats their boat. But there can't be respectful disagreement in a lie. Something that's objectively false is objectively false. Instead of proceeding under the correct process, John Carpenter wants to be his own pope, decide for himself. And I'm going to show you that there's been times where he's openly defied the Catholic Church, openly defied. Okay, they're going rogue and they're deliberately promoting a falsehood. So let me highlight this. Any claim that the Vatican has already approved even a fraction of this phenomenon is a straight up lie. No truth to it whatsoever. Now, Carpenter can't even get his lies straight. This is what's so amazing. He not only lies about what the Ruini report is, saying that it's an approval, but he lies about what it says. Because the truth is, the Ruini report is clear that it recommends approval of 7 apparitions. 7 apparitions, folks. That's it. 10 days. As you heard in the audio, that's been approved for a year. Where'd you get this year number? Made it up. Carpenter claims that the Ruini report accepts the first year, which is something he made up out of thin air. You heard the lie. You heard it in the above recording. Please re-listen and bear in mind that the commission specifically rejects all apparitions from date A and forward. That's right. The commission did not defer on the last 39 years, as Carpenter states, and we'll get into that. They voted on these apparitions, and not one commissioner, one member of the commission voted in favor. All right. Let me show you. Okay. This link is to the official report. Here it is right here. The official report. The section is 2.5 on page 14. Now I'm going to show it to you, but I want you to follow the link and see it yourself. Here's the report. Page 14, section 2.5. Here's the vote. Outcome of the vote concerning the supernaturality of the aspects of the subsequent history of the phenomenon. In other words, after the first 7 apparitions. Here's the vote. 8 members and 4 experts, non-dumb, whatever this, I can't speak Latin. 12 members refused to vote. The 2 members that voted said not supernatural. No supernatural determination can be made. Cannot be made a determination that's supernatural. Not one positive vote. 20 members. Okay. Isn't that incredible? Not one voted for. Okay. So I just showed you what the vote is. Once again, the truth is exactly the opposite of what Carpenter and Hartley says it is. Even the Ruini report today is saying it's not supernatural. Even the Ruini report today is saying Mary's not appearing there. So their verdict is proven false. So now let's listen to the next part here. This is, we're going to go from 49 seconds in to 57 seconds in, and he just ball-faced whopper of a lie here.
And by the way, this was the only time the Vatican stepped in to take the decision away from the local bishop.
Wow. There's only 2 problems with that statement. Number one, it's not the only time the Vatican stepped in to take the decision away from the local bishop. So that's lie number 1. And number 2, that's not what happened here. The Vatican did not step in to take the decision away from the local bishop. So in the instance where it did happen, the situation, the circumstance that he cites where the Vatican stepped in to take the decision away from the local bishop, in that circumstance, when it did happen, he sided with the dissident bishop. We're going to prove that. So he hung himself with his own argument here. Okay? So First of all, let's deal with the second part of the claim. Now, this was in our first article, but I'm going to revisit it. It's worth revisiting. Okay. Here we go. Vatican Doctrine Office don't promote alleged apparitions connected to the Lady of All Nations. Okay, here it is right here. Very, very clear. He's defined the Vatican's rule on this particular apparition. Okay. Now, what's amazing about this is exactly the circumstance that he talked about. In 2002, the Bishop of Holland, Joseph Punt, attempted to declare these apparitions supernatural. The Vatican stepped in and overruled him. This is the circumstance that he's talking about. The Vatican stepping in and taking it away from the bishop, overruled him. Okay. Vatican condemnation on these apparitions is very, very clear. All right. See if we can find it here. Okay. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to copy down the address and go read it for yourself. This is the Vatican condemning these apparitions, taking them away from the bishop and condemning them. I'm not going to go into it right now. You see the address there? This is from the Vatican website. Okay. So that's the first part of his claim. But the second part of his claim is also false. Okay. Because the Vatican did not take anything away from the bishop, either Bishop Zanuck or Bishop Perrick. They follow the norms. These are the 1978 norms on the determination of private revelations. Again, copy down the link. This is from the Vatican website. Copy down the link, visit it yourself. You'll see that everything that I'm saying is true. Okay. Gave you the link so you can look at it yourself. You can rewind, freeze the page if you have to, whatever you have to do. Okay. So the Regional or National Conference of Bishops, this is from what I just showed you, they can intervene if the ordinary of the place, having done its part, turns to it to judge the matter with greater certainty. That's the local bishop. If the matter pertains at a national or regional level, always with the prior consent of the ordinary of the place. That's exactly what happened. With the consent of Bishop Perrick, the Yugoslav Bishop Commission took over the investigation, investigated it, came back with the same verdict. Why? Because these apparitions had extended past the Diocese of Mostar and now were affecting the entire country. The same process of elevation goes in place when it becomes a worldwide phenomenon. Okay, and look at this. This is from Wikipedia again. On 17 March 2010, the Holy See announced that at the request of the bishops of Bosnia-Herzegovina, it established a committee headed by Cardinal Camillo Ruini. John Carpenter just slandered this bishop. He slandered him by saying that well, they didn't trust the bishop. They took it away from him. It was the bishop's request that the Vatican intervene. Right? And why? Okay. From the same rule book that I just showed you, requested by the ordinary, requested by the bishop, and here's why. Especially if the matter affects the larger part of the church, always after having consulted the ordinary, and even if the situation requires the conference of bishops. Why did the Vatican step in? Because Medjugorje had become a national, worldwide phenomenon. Had nothing to do with displeasure at this bishop. In fact, Bishop Perrick remained the Bishop of Mostar until September of 2020, when he resigned himself, retired. So 10 years after the Vatican took this over, he was still the Bishop of Mostar. Now, if they were unhappy with him, displeased with him, wouldn't they have removed him? Seems to me. See, John Carpenter doesn't want you to see this. it's up to the sacred congregation of the doctrine of the faith to approve, not up to the Ruini Commission. All right. Congregation of Doctrine of the Faith has made their views on the Ruini report very, very clear. They are foursquare against it. They wanted it thrown out. The day that they got it, they wanted the whole thing ripped up and thrown out. That's a matter of public record. All right. Now, you'd think that Carpenter would try to make his lies plausible, but he doesn't. All right. This bishop stayed in good standing until September of 2020. So not only does John Carpenter lie in saying the investigation was taken from the bishop, then he goes up and makes an outrageous lie about the bishop himself in order to support this preposterous claim. And he basically calumniates this bishop. Listen to this. This is from 58 to 120. Just an outrageous statement from 58 seconds into 120.
Because he didn't believe in Fatima or Guadalupe or Lourdes or any apparitions. And so they felt like too much was going on there to just not investigate it. So when he wouldn't do it, for the first time in history, the Vatican took it away from him and set up their own investigation, which took a good 3 years.
I don't even know how to comment on this except to say that it's 100% of what he just said there is false. 22 seconds of lying. I mean, that's what that is. That's what it is. Complete hogwash. Now notice he doesn't provide any links or any support or anything for this. Now, somebody claimed at some point that Bishop Parrott said in some form that he didn't believe in any apparitions. Go right to the horse's mouth. Interviewed by the diocesan newspaper, this is what Bishop Parrott said. Quote, perhaps misinformation is another of Medjugorje's phenomenon, but let us go back to Bishop Zanuck. The whole thing had so caught his interest that he became involved in questioning the visionaries himself and closely followed the happenings in Medjugorje. What bishop wouldn't be delighted that the Blessed Virgin Mary would be appearing in his diocese? Close quote. That's Bishop Parrott. What bishop wouldn't be delighted to have the Virgin Mary appear? Of course. But after a few months, when he heard the small fibs and large lies, insincerities, and exactitudes, and all sorts of fabricated stories from those who claimed the gospel was appearing to them, he became totally convinced that it was not a matter of supernatural appearances of the gospel. But Bishop Zanuck wasn't against Mary appearing. They weren't against, Bishop Parrott wasn't against Mary appearing. They just recognized it wasn't happening here because of the lies of the visionaries exposed this as a fraud. Right there in black and white. The Vatican stepped in because of the worldwide impact that this was having and the pastoral needs of the faithful, period. Never at any point has any competent authority suggested that the bishop had any improper bias or approach in any way. Let's review. 1 Bishop Zanuck Commission, 2 Bishop Zanuck Commissions, 1 Bishop Parrott Commission, Yugoslav Bishops Commission. John Carpenter is trying to allege that all of those were corrupt, that all of those had an agenda. Are you kidding me? Of course, neither of these can explain how the anti-Medjugorje forces managed to corrupt the diocesan commission, the Yugoslav bishops, the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith, and the Pope. I guess they're all in the conspiracy too. I think we can all see who's the peanut guy now, who's the peanut gallery guy. That verdict is proven false. All right, so now let's go from 121 to 304. And it just gets more comical. 121 to the rest of this, and let's comment on this.
And the vote finally came in, I believe it was 15 positive votes out of 17, I believe. You know, that was an overwhelming majority. And it was just for the first year. Now, people might think, well, what about the other 39 years? Well, it's a lot of material to cover, and the first year was crucial because that's when everything started and was first being known to everybody, and many things were happening that first year. So that's a lot to cover. Similarly, in Kibeho, Rwanda, they only approved the first 3 visionaries out of 8. And they basically said they don't have anything negative about the rest of the years and the rest of the visionaries. It's just too much work, and they just left it open for the rest of it to be approved later on. But they approved the first year with the first 3 visionaries. So it's not unusual for investigation to not study every single month and every single year, but just take a chunk of it and decide how they view it. So anyway, just wanted to throw that in.
Well, the bishop that you were just talking about from Medjugorje, he was the second one, if I'm not mistaken. The first one initially was, he had positive, but when the communists come down upon him, and I hear the criticism about that too. You know, people were criticizing that as well, but I think that it's interesting when you look at it. And
yeah, interesting when you look at it. All right, Don Hartley, let me start with you. You should be ashamed of yourself. I mean, you have known each other for a long time, and I can't believe what you're doing here. You're calumniating a bishop. Gave in to the communists. You have no evidence to support that whatsoever. No evidence to support that whatsoever. You know why? Bishop Zanuck started out open to the apparitions and then turned against them? Because the visionaries are liars. He caught them in their lies. Go back and read the transcripts of the original messages. See, that's the difference between you and me, Donald. I've read the original messages. You've read what John Carpenter writes about the messages. You've read what all the fluffy Medjugorje fairy bunny supporters have said. I've read the facts. I know what the messages actually said about how Mary was going to drop a bloody handkerchief in the river, and if she dropped the bloody handkerchief in the river, it was going to be the end of the world. How there's only 3 colors in heaven. How there's all religions are equal in the eyes of God. These are what the messages actually say. It's nonsense. And the biggest checkmate of all is the Ruini report talks about the only prophecy that was made during the first 10 days, that the visions would end. All 6 visionaries said the visions would end on July 3rd, 1981. What happened? They didn't. Okay? The fact is, I've already proven to you this is a lie. The Ruini Commission was not silent on the last 39 years. Oh, by the way, he's telling you the wrong information about Rwanda too. Go back and look up the case of Rwanda. I'm not going to go into that, but the visionaries after the first 3 were not approved deliberately. It was not, they didn't have time and it was too much material. Okay, go back and look it up. In fact, go back and look up just about anything that John Carpenter says, because the overwhelming majority of what he says is just nonsense. Right. Now, look at this claim from Donald Hartley. John Benko, you're the one listening to the peanut gallery. I side with the Ruini Commission and I stand on solid ground. John, your opposition on this matter might be a sign of your feelings towards Pope Francis, who has renewed pilgrimages to Medjugorje and has stationed an archbishop there as a permanent position. Father Amorth was one of the most famous Vatican exorcists. I'll stand with him on this matter. The bishop that Pope Francis sent to Medjugorje is dead. Bishop Hoser is dead. He was sent there to study the pastoral needs. It's been very, very open that he was there to study the pastoral needs of the diocese, not as an implicit approval. In fact, the rumor mongers kept saying Bishop Hoser is going to approve it. Bishop Hoser is going to approve it. Never happened. The bishop that went in there after Bishop Hoser has not approved it and never will. All right. Ruini Commission is a recommendation. It's a non-binding recommendation that supports 7 days or 7 apparitions, 10 days. So you're standing on quicksand, Donald, absolute quicksand. As far as Father Amorth, one of the world's most renowned exorcists, he's not an expert on Marian apparitions. Bishop Gemma, on the other hand, who was also a bishop in the Diocese of Rome, and I believe was actually Gabriel Amor's successor when Gabriel Amor died, but I'm not positive about that. He said that the apparitions there are a diabolical fraud. But they're all about the devil's dumb. That's what he said, money. Okay, so let's go down to, now it's time to really get into the reality of the Ruini Commission, to really step into it. The Ruini Commission report was made public in May of 2017. 5 years later, no action has been taken by the Pope or the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith. So what happened, Donald? So authoritative, why isn't the Pope approving it? Why isn't the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith approving it? And you claim that you side with the Ruini Commission. Well, it's great. It's great. That's a good step. Thanks for admitting that the Virgin Mary was not there when you went there in 1988, and the Virgin Mary was not there when you went there in 1989. Thank you for finally admitting that. Because that's what the Ruini Commission says. The International Commission notes, this is directly from the Ruini report, the International Commission notes in any case that the events subsequent to the first 7 apparitions constitute a real problem. Can't get much clearer than that. This is from the language of the report, which makes very difficult the evaluation in conformity to that which can be recognized in the original sign. So let me translate that. The Ruini Commission report is saying, well, we kind of think there might be something to the first 7 apparitions, but even we admit everything after that is crap. Even we admit anything that happened after July 3rd is crap, but we think we need to look at anything from July 3rd, back to June 24th, 1981. But everything after that is garbage. Right? But then listen to what it says here. This is also from the report. From the original documents made available to the International Commission, it appears that the then adolescents had declared that the phenomenon would end. It doesn't appear. It's in the transcripts. There's no appearance. It's in the transcripts. They are quoted as saying, on July 3rd, 1981, Bichka, possibly the biggest liar in the group, although Ivan might give her a contest for that. But if Bichka is not the biggest liar in the group, she's the second biggest liar. On July 3rd, she says that was the last apparition. But Mary changed her mind. I mean, oh yeah, let me hang around for another 40,000 apparitions. Come on. So the Ruini report right here just hung themselves. Well, we believe the 7 apparitions are true, but the only prediction made during those 7 apparitions obviously didn't come true. So just incredible. All right, this is what you go on and you read the rest of this. The alleged visionaries, in fact, appeared without emotions and took on an almost professional air in mentioning the phenomenon in progress. This is what they're talking about the current posture of the visionaries. They're going through the motions. They're acting. So let me emphasize what's being suggested here. These visionaries have gotten bored with Mary, apparently. Now they're just going through the motions. Mary's appearing to them, for years, daily, monthly, whatever, for years, thousands of apparitions. But they're just kind of going through the motions. Please. This is an admission that they're acting. There's a video that we posted that I'm going to be showing you in the 3rd show that proves that they're acting. Vichka was caught acting, and then she lied about it and said an outrageous lie. Okay, so these visionaries have no credibility to them whatsoever. Okay, they show a noticeably changed attitude, not only on an emotional level in relation to a certain addiction to repetition. That's a convoluted way of saying they're going through the motions. Addiction to repetition. Now, this is really incredible. This statement is really incredible. And again, this is a quote from the Ruini report. Here's the link, folks. You can find it yourself. In fact, this is a section where the quote is right here in section 2.4. Okay? 2.4. Look at this quote. Considering that such difference in narrative and credibility cannot be ascribed to reasons of psychological disorder or even outright immorality, if not perhaps in the case of Ivan Dragicevic, the problem with the witness's present credibility remains. Wow. So all of the visionaries, I guess, are not credible, and Ivan is immoral. Considering that such difference in narrative and credibility cannot be ascribed to reasons of psychological disorder or even outright immorality, if not in perhaps the case of Ivan. So Ivan's immoral. Other parts of this document say that he's addicted to money. He has no credibility. Okay. Wow. So the commission states that the apparitions from the 8th one forward present a real problem. Yeah, that's putting it mildly. Then the commission admits that the visionaries all claim the gospel. Right? This is in the original transcripts. I suggest you read Donald Foley's book because he shows from the original transcript the 6 visionaries were unanimous. It's on the record. It's in the transcripts. The visions will end on July 3rd, 1981. There was no ambiguity. So the Ruini Commission actually refutes its own claim. Then the commission admits that the visionaries seem to be emotionless and carrying an almost professional air and are addicted to repetition. Finally, the commission admits that at least one of the visionaries has no credibility, and the same visionary is but one that the commission claims is addicted to money and their own well-being. Wow. Wow. This is incredible. They have a relation ambiguous in certain respects with money and with what in general can be called a preoccupation with their own well-being. So let's get all this mumbo jumbo language. Let's clear all this mumbo jumbo language up into what's being straight up said by the Ruini Commission. Donald, remember, this is the Ruini Commission that you stand on solid ground with. Remember? Ruini Commission is saying they're liars. They're preoccupied with money. They're not credible. But we should believe them, not the first 7 apparitions. It's comical. Then in this part, it says that they're spiritually immature. But that's because, I'm not going to cite the specific part, look it up yourself. It says they're spiritually immature because they've lacked a spiritual director. What? It actually says that in the Ruini report, that all of them are spiritually immature because they haven't had a spiritual director. This report was issued in 2017. By this time, these 6 kids had claimed the Virgin Mary had been appearing to them for 35 years. What better spiritual director could you have than the Virgin Mary? Are you kidding me? I mean, this is just insanity what the Ruini report is saying here. So what the Ruini report is basically saying, this sums it all up here. 6 lying, manipulative, greedy hucksters encounter the Mother of God who transforms their life so much in just 10 days that they become humble, devoutly religious, obedient Catholics for the rest of their life. Great, wonderful. If that was the narrative, I'm on board with Medjugorje. The Ruini report is saying just the opposite. 6 humble, devoutly religious kids encounter the Virgin Mary and become lying, manipulative, greedy hucksters. She influenced their life so much that they now drive BMWs and own mansions. Jackoff owns a mansion in the outskirts of Boston, valued $800,000. None of them entered the religious life. And they basically started this Mary appears on demand scam. It's just incredible. So Virgin Mary appears to these innocent kids who are just minding their own business. They're just out tending their sheep. And she appears to them and all of a sudden turns them all into swindlers. Yeah, that's the mother of God. That's the mother that's appearing in Medjugorje? No, I don't think so. The mother that's appearing in Medjugorje is more like this one. So here's a link to the full report. So let's get into the minding our own business, tending sheep. That's already been unraveled. By the way, Vixia had to for testimony to avoid a perjury charge. That's fact on the record. Kids later admitted on the record that they actually went up to the proverbial hill to smoke and listen to rock music. And it's credibly conjectured that they weren't smoking tobacco either. That's the way. It is blasphemy to suggest that the Virgin Mother of God is the woman appearing in Medjugorje. It's blasphemy. Are you kidding me? They were going up the hill to smoke marijuana. That's what the most credible evidence supports. To smoke marijuana and listen to rock music. Now, did they see anything the first 7 days? Donald Foley conjectures that maybe they did, that they saw something in the first 7 days. All right? But then when they realized that all the predictions that were made weren't coming true, they had to keep perpetuating the myth. See, that's the catch of Medjugorje. People who support Medjugorje say, well, you know, got to wait to see if the promises are going to be fulfilled. That's how it keeps going on. We're still waiting. You know, after 40 years, they don't all have the 10 secrets. And when they investigated it, none of them would tell the commission what the secrets were. Oh, you have to wait till the secrets are fulfilled. Then we'll tell you what they are. Oh, that's very convenient. Let's deal with the rest of what Donald Hartley says here. Despite Mr. Hartley's vicious claim that I have bad feelings towards Pope Francis, nothing could be further from the truth. I've been one of his most vocal defenders for his entire papacy. In fact, I've defended Pope Francis on the Deeper Truth show when other members impugned his character. The Pope allows pilgrimage to Medjugorje. Well, I mean, how's he going to stop? 4 million people going there a year. What he has still banned, though, is public promotion of the events as real. So people can go there and pray, go to confession, go to mass. Great. You can't promote it as real. So that verdict is false. Bishop Hoser is dead. Bishop Hoser was never put there. It's not a permanent bishop position. It's there to study the pastoral needs, not a permanent position. That's a lie. And as for exorcist Gabriel Amaroth, you give me one exorcist that was pro Medjugorje, I'll give you one that was against. Exorcist Bishop Gemma said that it was a diabolical fraud motivated by the devil's dome. And I'll go with Bishop Gemma on that. So everything that Donald has said here is by inference, but he won't respond to these facts. Why after 58 months has the Vatican not accepted the results of the Ruini Commission? Why after 58 months has the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith not accepted the results of the Ruini Commission? Why doesn't the Vatican, which has been examining Medjugorje for 12 years now, simply declare it approved? More importantly, why is John Carpenter lying and sullying the name of deeper truth rather than defer to the church and its providence? You know very well why. The truth is that CDF slammed the Ruini report. It's biased in favor of the pro-Medjugorje side. It criticized the obvious inconsistencies of decrying the immaturity and credibility and attraction to money of the visionaries, immorality, and then flip-flopping declared, yeah, but we believe the first week. We believe the first week and a half. It's especially incredible when examining that the one and only prediction of those first 10 days undeniably did not come true. The CDF actually advised Pope Francis to reject the report entirely and immediately render a negative judgment on Medjugorje. That's fact, it's documented. The Pope decided to study the matter further for now while focusing on the pastoral needs of the diocese and the pilgrims. Nevertheless, he made his personal feelings known. He pledged to further study the first 7 apparitions while making it clear he fully rejects those after. Okay, here's his own words. First 7 apparitions, which were to children, the report more or less says that these need to be continued being studied. He's referring back to the Ruini report. So that we need to keep looking at it. He said, but as for the presumed current apparitions, the report has its doubts. Now listen to what Pope Francis says. Donald, listen to this. This is what your Pope is saying. This is what your Holy Father is saying. I personally am more suspicious. I prefer the Madonna as mother, our mother, and not a woman who's the head of an office who every day sends a message at a certain hour. This is not the mother of Jesus, and these presumed apparitions don't have a lot of it. Yeah, I agree with him. Let's face it, you've replaced Pope Francis with Pope John Carpenter. That's what you've done here. Pope Francis said these apparitions don't have any value. Pope Francis has said, this is not the mother of Jesus. It's on record as saying that. This is not the mother of Jesus appearing in Medjugorje now. So as a statistical fact, Pope Francis has already closed the door completely on 99.9%. That is a statistical number. 99.9% of the alleged apparitions, I think it's actually 99.96%, that he's completely closed the door. And there's that much of a crack in that last 0.04% or whatever it is. Okay, that much. And that's going to be closed too. Congregation of the Doctrine of Faith, they've closed at 100%. Folks, Medjugorje, the Ruini report means nothing. It's never going to be approved. Even if it is approved, the Virgin Mary is not appearing in Medjugorje. It's not going to be approved. Virgin Mary has never appeared in Medjugorje. And at the end of the day, the Ruini report proves it. The Ruini report, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to insult Cardinal Ruini here, but the Ruini report is some of the worst self-repeating nonsense I have ever seen in my life. That's it. That's the truth about the Ruini report that you won't get from Deeper Truth. They've gone back on what they're about. They've gone back on what it was founded about. They might as well just call themselves Deeper Lies.